Good Friday morning, everyone. Michelle Mortensen here with you today. And what a big show we're going to have for you. So, rumor has it, we are going to hear from the president for the first time in months in just a little bit. And we will do our best to try to bring you some highlights of that when the president does speak to the nation and does his first press conference in quite some time. I do believe it's going to be election related. But there was so much going on in the world of COVID. There is so much going on with the vaccines. This is one of those days where by tomorrow we could have a vaccine on the market for COVID. What does that mean for you? A little bit later on in the show, we're going to be speaking with a vaccine expert to tell us whether we really need this vaccine, whether we don't need this vaccine. Will it be mandated? What does that mean for everyone? That's a big discussion we're going to get to in a little bit. But first, I want to pose a question to you. And if you're watching right now, if you're listening on KSHP, call this number 702-221-7283 because I want to hear from you directly. And the question I have for you today is, how much of your freedom are you willing to give up? How much of your freedom are you willing to just get rid of? It's an important question because every single day it appears we're losing more and more of our freedoms. Every single day, it appears that we're being told, guess what? Now you can't do this. I mean, heck, the CDC says, don't do Thanksgiving. Don't meet with your family. God forbid you choose to do something like that. God forbid you choose to meet with your family, because how awful would you feel if you had Thanksgiving and then grandma died? What type of guilt trip is that? What kind of life is grandma having right now that she can't see any of her family? And who is it for the government or the CDC or anyone to tell you who you can see, who you can't see, if you celebrate a holiday, if you don't celebrate a holiday? How come more Americans don't see the slippery slope? How come it's only conservatives who are raising up their hands and saying, how now, brown cow? We're taking this a step too far. A step too far. Everyone says, "Oh, well, it's our duty. It's our duty. It's our duty. We have to do this for public health." No, you don't have to do it for public health. No one said it's your job to protect me. No one says it's the government's job to protect me. The government is there to govern. The government is there to legislate. The government is not there to protect you. You don't have a right. The government does not have a right to tell us how to live our lives and what to do. They literally do not have a constitutional right to tell you to wear a mask. They do not have a constitutional right to tell you to get a vaccine. They do not have a constitutional right to tell you you can't have Thanksgiving. And my goodness, they do not have a constitutional right to tell you that if you do have Thanksgiving, we're going to throw you in jail for 30 days and fine you $1,250 like the governor of Oregon has said. And speaking of governors, what the heck is up with these governors? Let's talk about Newsom first, shall we? Oh my God, the hypocrite in chief who says, let them eat cake. He sits there and says people can't go to restaurants. He now just issued a curfew for the state of California. You can't go out past 10 p.m. But none of these rules apply to him. Not a one. He can go hang out at the French Laundry restaurant in Napa. He doesn't have to wear a mask. He can do whatever the heck he wants. The mayor of Washington, D.C., she can travel when everyone else can't. She can travel to Delaware to go congratulate Joe Biden. Why? Because her travel is considered essential business. Interesting. That's interesting. How come she's essential and nobody else is? Very, 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 very interesting indeed. In fact, how is it that the people of California can't travel and they can't go anywhere, and their entire state is burning to the ground with wildfires, yet legislative representatives are going to Hawaii to live it up to talk with lobbyists? How is that going on? How is that going on right now? Speaking of crazy governors, Cuomo. I'm going to show you a video of Cuomo in a moment. Cuomo has been telling everyone he is such an egotistical maniac that he sat there and he said, you know what, I'm going to write a book about, quote, the crisis of COVID, and I know what I'm talking about. I'm the expert on COVID. Cuomo sits there and says, you have to do what I say, and if you don't do what I say, I'm going to come after you. Cuomo does the most Trump-esque move ever yesterday, and he literally berates a reporter. Now, doesn't everyone get all up in arms when Trump goes after the media? Doesn't everyone say that's so inappropriate? It's so rude. It's so horrible. It doesn't show discretion at all. Well, look at Cuomo, hypocrite in chief right here. Let's watch this video.
The other day you said, this is the city's decision. They have an agreement of 3%. Today you said, well, I might have to impose an orange zone and I might have to close the schools, which an orange zone does. So what's going on? Does the city still have the ability to close its schools? You now taking control and saying you have the power to make this decision. And for the millions of parents who want to know, are the schools going to open tomorrow in New York City?
All right. First of all, let's try not to be obnoxious and offensive in your tone, because you're 100% wrong. We announced the orange zone law over a month ago. I don't know if you were here or if you were paying attention, but that has been in effect for over a month. It always said, if by the state's numbers you hit 3%, the schools close. What's going on here is nothing that the law hasn't said for over a month. We then had the test out procedures. If you were paying attention, you would have known we closed the schools in New York City 2 weeks ago. Remember when we did an orange zone and a red zone in Brooklyn and Queens, and we closed the schools? Don't you remember that?
It was 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already. That's the law, an orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
I'm still confused.
Well, then you're confused.
I'm confused. And
Then I'll tell you what, Jimmy.
Parents are still confused as well. The schools
No,
in
they're
New
not
York City
confused.
tomorrow.
You're confused.
No, I think
Read
parents
the
are very
law.
confused as well.
Read the law, and you won't be confused.
So, Governor,
Go ahead.
following Jimmy's question, are the schools going to be open tomorrow?
The schools are open by state law.
Will they be open tomorrow? That's the question. I think Jimmy's correct in asking that question. I don't think it's obnoxious at all.
Well, I don't really care what you think.
Okay, so here's my point. So he gets to call people obnoxious. He gets to say, I don't really care what you think. He gets to say, were you paying attention? I don't know if you were listening. He gets to do that. And everybody says that's perfectly all right. Nobody raises an eye. Nobody says, oh my gosh, that was a little out of control. No. This guy writes a book on his leadership for freaking COVID when he's the guy who put all those people in the nursing homes and is directly responsible for massive amount of casualties in the state of New York. Nobody from the media says boo about that. How is any of this right and fair? And here's the thing. Cuomo's sitting there acting like people are stupid. Like, oh, you're not paying attention. You haven't listened to me. You don't know what's going on. You're not following the science. Let me tell you, no one has been following the science. People are really arbitrarily following the science. When this little piece of science data follows what you want to believe, people go, look at the science, look at the science, look at the numbers. And then another group sits there and says, well, look at the science, look at the science, look at the numbers. Here's the craziest thing. On November 17th, an article came out that said immunity to COVID lasts only 3 to 5 months. The very next day, on November 18th, an article came out that said your immunity to COVID lasts years. What the fudge, guys? How can you literally have two conflicting views come out on the same, within a day of each other, within 24 hours of each other? It is insane. There is so much more to discuss about all of this. And in the next block, we're going to talk about it all. If you can see here, we're doing the song Poisoned by Belle Div DeVoe. Why? Because some people wonder, is this vaccine that's potentially coming out, is it going to be like poison? We don't really know. We're going to talk about it with an expert. Plus, we're going to see why cancel culture is coming for Rudolph. And when you hit your prime, we've got the exact number. So stay with us because we've got a lot more show to come up. Stick with us through the commercials. All right, my friends, and stay tuned.
Saving money on your car insurance is